All right, so I'm here to give you the latest updates on PPP loan forgiveness. So it's been a little while since we had an update. There haven't been any huge changes recently, but a few little things that I definitely want to make sure everybody's aware of. Obviously, the biggest change that we last talked about was the extension of the covered period from what was originally 8 weeks, extending now to 24 weeks. So hopefully that gave everybody a little bit more freedom to spend the money, but I definitely want to go over a couple of the latest updates with you. So looking at it, the first thing I want to mention is the new forgiveness application. So there was an original forgiveness application that was released. They have made some updates. The latest version was released earlier this week. There aren't a huge amount of changes to it, but you definitely want to make sure you have the latest application if you are using it to plan, or if you're actually filling it out. We have a link below to the latest application so you can download it. They also released an easy version of the application. So basically a simpler version if you fall under one of three categories. So if you were a sole proprietor, which means you filed a Schedule C and you didn't have any employees, then you can use the easy version of the application. Basically, if you didn't have any employees when you applied for it, or you didn't pay any employees during the covered period. Also, if you were any other type of employer and you didn't reduce any employees' wages by more than 25%, or you didn't reduce your full-time equivalents during the covered period. So basically, you kept all your people at the same rate, then you can use the easy version. And then the third option, if you didn't reduce any individual employees' wages during the covered period, and you were unable to operate at your pre-disaster levels because of your compliance with the health directives. Basically, if you were a restaurant that was closed down or a gym that was closed down during the period, then you can also use the easy version. It just makes it a little simpler because you don't have to calculate some of those wage and full-time equivalent reductions in the easy version. Just want to make you aware of those two things. Next, talking a little bit about the compensation limits for individual employees. So if you'll remember back when it was an 8-week covered period, any individual employee, the maximum amount of compensation you can consider was $100,000 annual, which meant for an 8-week period, that was $15,385. So that's the amount that you could pay an employee and have it forgiven. Now that it's 24 weeks, the 15,385 is now 46,154. So obviously you can pay any one individual employee quite a bit more and still have it forgiven, especially considering that the loan was based on 2.5 months of wages. Basically, that most people shouldn't have any trouble getting full forgiveness because you can pay an individual employee quite a bit. Keep in mind that the health insurance and retirement benefits that you pay for the employee is on top of that. So that would not be part of the $46,000 limit. Just wanted to point that out. It was a question that we had when they extended the time frame, was whether they would also increase that limit per employee, and they did. So that's good news. I guess the bad news, if there is bad news, is that was not extended, at least not entirely, for owner employees. No, that means sole proprietors. It means partners in a partnership. It means S corporation shareholders. It means C corporation shareholders. All of these are considered owner employees, and what they don't want you to do is basically increase the pay for owner employees. Everybody else, yes, but not the owners. So while it wasn't extended to 24 weeks, it was extended to 2.5 months because the application was based on 2.5 months. They did say, we'll allow you to pay 2.5 months worth of wages to these owner employees. So the limit went from 15,000 to 20,000, so a little bit more. But keep in mind, if you are an S corporation shareholder, your health insurance premiums are considered compensation and not actually health insurance premiums. So that is part of the $20,000 limit. So if you do pay health insurance premiums for S corporation shareholders, you have to still fall under that $20,000 limit, at least for the forgivable part. And the other stipulation that was already in there, but it is also limited to 2.5 months of what you were paid in 2019, so you can't increase your pay during this period compared to what you paid yourself last year. It's still, it looks pretty strict on the owner employees, meaning there isn't any stipulations that family members fall under this category. It will be, I guess, wait to see on that. So if you do have kids, siblings, parents that are employees, as of right now, at least, it doesn't look that those people would be considered employees. I mean, owner employees. What also this means, because they extended the 8 weeks out to 2.5 months, if you are a sole proprietor without any employees, since the loan amount was based on 2.5 months of your 2019 income, you're basically getting automatic forgiveness here. They will allow you to pay yourself for 2.5 months. When it was limited to 8 weeks, you had to figure out how to use the rest of it, but now that you can use 2.5 months, it's basically forgiven. And keep in mind, if you do fall into that category, you can use the EZ form of the application to apply for forgiveness. The next thing I want to mention is now the application date is important. So the date that you apply for forgiveness now matters, and I'll say why. Now, it's always been the case that they offered a safe harbor. So if you reduced wages for employees, or if you reduced your full-time equivalents, then the amount that you had forgiven from this loan could be limited. But they offered, in the original act, they offered a safe harbor date of June 30th, that as long as you returned back to quote unquote normal by June 30th, then you wouldn't have to reduce your forgiveness. Now, under the new rules, they've extended that June 30th date to December 31st. But what's come out recently is they're also going to look at the date that you actually apply, assuming that that is before December 31st that you apply, that if you return to normal by that date of the application, then you qualify for the safe harbor. So you'll want to make sure that if you did have a reduction in wages, or you had a reduction in full-time equivalents, and that might affect your forgiveness, that you wait until you return to normal before you apply for forgiveness. Now, the latest you can wait till is December 31st and still qualify for that, because you can't go past that for the safe harbor. But anytime between now and then, you'll want to wait until you actually return to normal before you apply. The application is due 10 months after your covered period, so that application might not be due till after December 31st, but December 31st is the last day you can use for that safe harbor. So just keep that in mind. Now, with the extended 24 weeks and the fact that the loan was only 2.5 times the normal, most people are probably going to still qualify for full forgiveness, even if they did have a reduction in wages or a reduction in full-time equivalents, but you can guarantee it to a large extent if you do wait until you are returned to normal to apply for the forgiveness. So the question I'm getting a lot now is people asking, should I apply now? Because you can apply early if you want. You don't have to wait until the end of the 24 weeks. And if you do, you can still opt into the 8-week covered period if you want. But once you use up the money, you can apply for forgiveness. But I would tell you that it really only makes sense if you didn't have any reductions in either wages or full-time equivalents, and you already qualify for full forgiveness. You're not, counting on the safe harbor. So basically, if you applied for the loan and got it, but didn't have any changes to your workforce, and you just want to get this over with, then go ahead and apply. But there are a lot of banks, or a few that I've heard from already, that say, don't apply yet, that will reach out to you, and that they have special people assigned to the forgiveness, and those people will be reaching out to you. So some banks might not even accept the application yet. There really isn't a huge amount of urgency, like I said, unless you really just want to get it over with. But you can apply early if you want. The big question that we don't know yet, and we're still waiting on, is whether right now these expenses that you pay with the PPP loan proceeds are, if the amount is forgiven, they are not deductible for your tax returns. So that will make a big difference for a lot of people's tax payments. But the hope is that they change that. Most people are fighting for them to change it, but as of right now, they have not. So it'll be something we keep an eye on. It shouldn't affect whether you apply for forgiveness or any of that. So it is just a keep our fingers crossed and hope. But it is something to keep in mind that we are still waiting to hear on that. So that's really it as far as the latest updates. Definitely reach out to us if you have any questions. You can email me. We'll like I mentioned, we'll put the links to the new applications below. But hopefully this helps.